The moment you explain yourself, you surrender power. Truth doesn't rule the world, perception does. Silence terrifies more than words ever can. Explaining yourself weakens your power and erodes authority, because the moment you justify your actions, you admit that others have the right to question you. Authority does not ask permission to exist, nor does it beg for validation. It simply stands. When you begin to explain, you lower yourself from the position of command to the position of defense, and defense is always the weaker stance. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. The one who leads cannot afford to be seen as uncertain, for uncertainty is blood in the water, and the crowd is filled with sharks. Consider this. When a leader takes decisive action but then scrambles to explain why, it signals doubt. It signals fear of being misunderstood. But real strength never fears misunderstanding. It allows misunderstanding to exist, because power is not dependent on the approval of others. In fact, the strongest figures in history rarely explained their decisions. They acted, and those actions became the explanation. The more a leader explains, the more they give away their inner workings, their calculations, their insecurities. And once exposed, those weaknesses can be exploited. Explaining also creates a cycle that cannot be broken easily. Once you explain once, people expect you to explain again. The more you explain, the more you teach others that your power must be justified to them. You place them in the position of judge, and yourself in the position of defendant. Over time, this erodes the foundation of authority until nothing remains but endless justification, endless excuses, endless words that never restore the lost respect. Think of how the powerful carry themselves. They speak less, they reveal less, they offer no apologies for their decisions. Their silence creates weight, their restraint builds mystery. This lack of explanation commands more respect than any amount of reasoning ever could. Why? Because explanation always shrinks power to the size of an argument, while silence expands it into the realm of presence. The act of explaining also changes the relationship between leader and follower. Authority depends on distance, on the sense that the one in charge sees further, knows more, stands above the crowd. But explanation collapses that distance. It pulls the leader down to the level of the follower, as if they are equals debating the merit of a choice. Machiavelli would argue that this is fatal to power. The prince, the ruler, the leader must never stoop to justification, for once you do, you are no longer leading, you are negotiating. Even in personal life, the pattern is the same. When you explain yourself to friends, colleagues, or rivals, you are handing them the power to approve or disapprove of you. You are saying, "Please understand me," instead of saying, "This is how it is." And in that small shift, you lose a piece of your authority. Respect does not grow from endless explanations. It grows from consistency, from decisiveness, from actions that speak so clearly they need no defense. The truth is that explanation is often less about clarity and more about insecurity. People explain themselves when they fear rejection, when they fear being judged wrongly, when they fear that silence might cost them approval. But Machiavelli would remind us that fear of judgment is the root of weakness. Power belongs to those who can endure being misunderstood, even hated, without needing to justify themselves. To stand in silence under scrutiny is to prove that your authority does not depend on the crowd, it depends only on your will. That is why explaining yourself is dangerous. It is not just a matter of words, it is a matter of posture, of energy, of perception. Each explanation chips away at your image, piece by piece, until what remains is someone who must constantly defend themselves rather than someone who commands. Authority thrives on decisiveness and mystery, but explanation dissolves both, and once dissolved, they are nearly impossible to rebuild. So the brutal truth is this: every explanation is a concession, every justification is a surrender. To explain yourself is to hand over your power voluntarily, to erode the very foundation of authority on which respect is built. The wise, therefore, do not explain. They act, and let the action itself stand as the only statement needed. They endure misunderstanding with silence, knowing that authority is not measured by agreement, but by control of perception. Perception matters more than truth. Control it without justification, because in the theater of human affairs, it is not reality that rules. It is what people believe reality to be. Machiavelli understood this with ruthless clarity. He knew that the truth is often hidden, complex, or dull, but perception is immediate, sharp, and commanding. People do not follow truth, because truth requires effort to see. They follow the story that is visible, the image that is projected, the mask that is worn. This is why great leaders, cunning rulers, and powerful individuals throughout history have invested far more in shaping appearances than in defending truth. Once people believe something about you, whether good or bad, it becomes their reality, and no amount of factual explanation can fully erase it. Thus, the wise do not waste energy on justification. They sculpt perception until it is so solid that truth becomes irrelevant. Consider the role of perception in leadership. A ruler may face failure, weakness, or even defeat behind closed doors, but if the public perceives him as confident, unshaken, and in control, then that image becomes stronger than the private truth. People draw strength not from what is real, but from what they perceive to be real. A king who smiles in the face of disaster inspires hope and loyalty, even if he knows his armies are struggling. A general who appears calm and unflinching before battle wins half the war before a sword is even drawn. The perception of strength becomes strength itself, while the perception of weakness is weakness magnified. This is why Machiavelli urged rulers to always appear virtuous, even if they were ruthless in practice. The image of goodness mattered more than goodness itself, because perception has the power to bind people more tightly than reality ever could. Truth in its raw form is rarely satisfying to the masses. It is too complicated, too uncertain, too unpolished. People crave clarity, certainty, and a story they can hold on to, even if it is not entirely accurate. This is where perception comes in. It reduces complexity into something simple, something that can be believed and repeated. The powerful understand this, and refuse to drown themselves in justification. When accused, they do not beg to be understood. They project a stronger image, one that overshadows the accusation. By refusing to justify, they signal that their authority is unquestionable, and that very posture strengthens their position. To explain is to descend into the mud of details, but to control perception is to rise above details entirely, allowing others to accept the image rather than dissect the truth. In everyday life, this principle is just as present. A person who is perceived as confident will be treated as competent, even if their actual skill is average. A person who is perceived as trustworthy will be given opportunities, even if their truth is more complex. Conversely, once someone is perceived as weak or unreliable, even their honest efforts will be doubted. The reality of their work becomes irrelevant, because perception has already written the script. That is why perception must be guarded like treasure. It shapes the way others treat you. It influences the doors that open for you, and it determines whether people align with you or abandon you. Machiavelli's brilliance lies in his insistence that perception can be crafted deliberately. It is not fate. It is not chance. It is an art form. To control perception without justification means mastering the ability to project an image so confidently that others accept it without demand for explanation. This requires discipline, restraint, and the courage to endure misunderstanding without breaking the mask. When someone challenges you, the instinct is to explain, to defend, to present truth as proof. But this instinct is fatal to power. A master of perception does not explain. He redirects attention, strengthens the image, and allows silence or mystery to do the work that truth never could. One reason perception holds more weight than truth is that human beings are guided by emotion more than reason. People respond to symbols, gestures, and appearances far faster than to rational arguments. They are more persuaded by how something feels than by whether it is logically at. This is why propaganda has shaped nations, why rumors destroy reputations, and why appearances in politics often matter more than policies. If people perceive you as strong, consistent, and commanding, they will grant you power, even if the underlying truth is messy. But if they perceive hesitation, defensiveness, or desperation to be understood, no amount of truth can save you. The battle, therefore, is not over facts, but over impressions, not over explanation, but over projection. History is filled with examples that reveal this brutal truth. Leaders who lied convincingly, who maintained the perception of invincibility, often ruled longer than those who were honest, but appeared weak. Generals who staged grand shows of confidence, often demoralized enemies before the fight even began. On the other hand, leaders who tried to explain their failures or justify their missteps often fell quickly, because their explanations revealed that their power rested not in perception, but in fragile appeals to truth. Machiavelli observed that people judge with their eyes, not with their minds. They are moved by what they see and feel more than by the deeper reality. The lesson is simple. If you control what people see, you control what they believe, and if you control what they believe, you control them. Even in personal relationships, perception often outweighs truth. A friend who perceives you as loyal will forgive more easily than one who perceives you as distant, even if the truth is the opposite. A rival who perceives you as unshaken will hesitate before attacking, even if you are secretly exhausted. In this sense, perception is a shield, a weapon, and a form of currency, more valuable than honesty. It is the story others tell about you when you are not in the room, the image they carry of you that shapes their behavior. Control that, and you need not waste your energy on endless explanations. To control perception without justification requires one more element: patience. You must resist the urge to correct every false assumption, to defend against every rumor, to explain every action. By doing so, you show that perception matters to you, but only on your terms. Silence often carries more weight than words, and mystery often carries more power than explanation. The world will fill silence with its own stories, and if you carry yourself with confidence, those stories will often work in your favor. Explanation closes the door by forcing people to see the truth, but silence keeps the door open for them to believe something greater than the truth. In the end, perception governs human behavior far more than reality. The world rarely rewards the honest truth-teller, but it consistently elevates those who master appearances. This is not because people are foolish, but because people seek certainty, direction, and strength in symbols they can believe in. Truth is fragile, but perception is enduring. The one who controls perception holds the power to shape reality itself. And that is why Machiavelli's brutal wisdom endures. Do not waste your strength on justifying what is true. Instead, control what is seen, what is believed, and what is repeated. Perception, once captured, becomes the only truth that matters. Silence and decisive action create respect, while words often invite doubt, because in the realm of power, people are not persuaded by explanations nearly as much as they are moved by results. The human mind interprets silence not as absence, but as presence, an unshakable calm that suggests confidence, control, and mystery. When someone remains silent in the face of challenge, rather than scrambling to justify themselves, they project the image of someone who is unbothered, someone whose authority is so natural that it requires no defense. Silence carries weight because it leaves room for others to wonder, to interpret, and to ascribe meaning, and often that meaning is far more powerful than anything you could have said. Decisive action, on the other hand, answers questions before they are asked. It silences doubt not with arguments, but with undeniable proof. Words explain, actions decide, and when the two are compared, history remembers the act, not the speech that tried to justify it. Consider how the greatest leaders throughout history have used silence. A ruler who refuses to respond to slander does not diminish themselves by engaging with every critic. Instead, they leave their enemies shouting into the void, their accusations weakened by the ruler's refusal to acknowledge them. That silence, when paired with decisive action, creates an image of superiority. It suggests, I am beyond this noise. I do not need to explain myself, because my actions speak louder than anything you can say. People instinctively respect that posture, because it communicates certainty and strength, without ever descending into petty defense. Conversely, leaders who constantly talk, justify, or explain every move, reveal their insecurity. Their words betray that they care deeply about being understood, about being approved of, and that insecurity chips away at their aura of authority. Decisive action is equally essential because it demonstrates clarity of will. To act without hesitation is to show mastery over both the situation and yourself. People follow those who appear certain, not those who constantly debate with themselves or with others. A commander who hesitates before giving an order inspires fear and doubt in his soldiers. One who acts swiftly, even under uncertainty, inspires loyalty because decisiveness feels like strength. Machiavelli understood this. The appearance of resolution is more important than the correctness of the decision. Mistakes can be adjusted, but hesitation cannot be forgotten. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates belief. Words, however, often paralyze. They open endless questions, invite endless scrutiny, and make even the strongest decision appear fragile. The paradox of words is that the more you use them to defend yourself, the less people believe you. Every explanation sounds like weakness, every justification like an admission of guilt. When accused, if you rush to protest, people suspect the protest is a cover. When silent, however, you leave the accuser with nothing to grasp. Silence forces others to fill in the gaps themselves, and often, they will imagine you stronger than you are. This is why the wise use words sparingly, like weapons chosen only for decisive moments. They speak not to justify but to declare, to command, or to finalize. Their words end debates rather than invite them. This selectiveness gives each word weight, because people know it is not wasted. In contrast, those who speak endlessly are quickly ignored. Their words lose value because they reveal too much, and in revealing too much, they surrender mystery. Mystery itself is one of the great sources of respect. People cannot fully respect what they fully understand. When you explain yourself completely, you strip away the layers that created your aura of authority. Silence preserves those layers. It allows others to imagine that you know more than you do, that you see further than you see, that you are stronger than you are. This perception is powerful because people respect not only what is real, but also what they believe is real. Decisive action then reinforces this perception by giving them something tangible to point to, something undeniable that confirms the image they already hold. Together, silence and action weave a narrative that words can never equal. Even in personal life, the principle holds. Imagine two people in conflict, one who talks endlessly, trying to explain their position, and another who listens quietly, then makes a single firm decision. The talker appears desperate, even if their points are valid, while the quiet one commands respect, simply by refusing to enter the arena of debate. People admire restraint, because restraint signals mastery, and when that restraint is paired with a decisive move, it creates the impression of authority, as if the person has already calculated everything and now chooses action over noise. The one who acts without drowning in explanations becomes the one remembered, the one respected, even if their action is simple. This is why Machiavelli would argue that silence and decisive action are not just tactics, but necessity. A prince, or a leader, who spends too much time speaking and explaining erodes his own image, for words open wounds that action could have closed. The crowd does not crave explanations, it craves certainty. It wants to see that the one in power knows what must be done, and does it without flinching. The silence before action, and the firmness of the action itself, give people this certainty. They may not know the reasoning, they may not know the truth, but they believe in the strength they perceive, and that belief is more valuable than any explanation. The danger of words lies also in their permanence. Once spoken, they can be twisted, remembered, quoted against you. Action, however, is harder to argue with. It stands as proof, something tangible, something real, and silence leaves nothing for others to weaponize. This combination creates respect, because it shields you from the traps of language, the snares of argument, and the endless cycle of justification. Words expose, silence conceals. Words divide, action unites. Words invite scrutiny, action silences it. To live by this principle is to recognize that respect is not earned by convincing others, but by commanding them through presence and decisiveness. People do not follow those who are most articulate, they follow those who radiate strength through what they do, and what they withhold. Silence creates the space for that strength to grow in the imagination of others, and decisive action turns that imagined strength into reality. The two together form the foundation of authority that cannot be shaken by doubt. For when the world sees you act with clarity, and refuses to hear you beg for understanding, it learns a truth that words could never teach. You are not someone to be debated, you are someone to be obeyed. Machiavelli teaches that rulers and leaders must let results speak louder than explanations, because in the end, people are not persuaded by the beauty of words but by the reality of outcome. A ruler may promise much, may speak eloquently, may explain his reasoning with care, but if his decisions do not bring visible strength, stability or success, all his words are revealed as hollow. Explanations are fragile because they rest on hope and persuasion, while results are undeniable. They cannot be argued against, they cannot be dismissed. People may resist your words, they may question your intentions, they may even mock your explanations, but when results are placed before them, resistance collapses. The battle is no longer about belief or doubt, the outcome itself becomes the truth. That is why Machiavelli emphasized the ruthless necessity of producing results that silence critics, instead of wasting strength on justifications that convince no one. A ruler who constantly explains his decisions is like a builder who describes the beauty of a palace that does not exist. His words may be colorful, his descriptions vivid, but until the walls rise from the ground, those words inspire nothing but impatience and suspicion. By contrast, the builder who works in silence and lets the finished palace stand before all requires no explanation at all. The result speaks for him, and the silence surrounding it only magnifies the respect. This analogy reveals a universal truth about leadership. The world rewards those who deliver visible outcomes, not those who defend invisible intentions. People are less interested in why you acted, and more interested in what your actions achieve. Machiavelli understood human nature with cruel clarity. Most people do not care about your reasoning, they do not value your careful thought process, nor do they reward your honesty in explaining it. They care about whether you succeed or fail, whether they are safer, stronger, or richer because of you. Words can inspire temporarily, but results endure permanently. A general who explains why he lost a battle gains no respect, but a general who wins, even without explanation, becomes immortalized. The outcome erases the need for words.
The result itself becomes the justification, the proof, the story that needs no telling. This is why Machiavelli would advise leaders to focus, not on their intentions, not on defending their methods, but on ensuring that outcomes are strong enough to crush doubt before it can rise. When leaders rely on explanations, they open themselves to the judgment of others. They place their authority in the hands of those who may or may not believe them. But when leaders rely on results, they close the door to judgment because results stand as fact. Imagine two rulers facing famine. One gives long speeches explaining why the famine exists, blaming weather, circumstance, or enemies. The other secures grain, fills markets, and restores food to the people. Which one will be respected? Which one will be followed? The answer is obvious: the one who produced results, because his action restored life, while the other only offered words. This is the essence of Machiavelli's teaching. Explanations win sympathy at best, but results win loyalty, fear, and respect. Another danger of explanations is that they invite endless scrutiny. The more you explain, the more people dissect your words, looking for weaknesses, contradictions, or hidden motives. They debate your sincerity, they speculate about your intentions, and in the process, your authority erodes. But results are immune to such dissection. A bridge built stands regardless of doubts. A kingdom defended is secure regardless of arguments. A company that thrives silences critics without a word. When outcomes are clear, explanations become unnecessary. When outcomes are lacking, explanations become useless. Leaders who understand this do not waste time polishing speeches. They concentrate on decisive action, knowing that the result itself will become the loudest voice. Machiavelli's vision of power is grounded in the brutal truth that appearances and results outweigh intentions. He advised rulers to appear virtuous even if they were not, to act decisively even if uncertain, and above all, to secure outcomes that protected their rule. For he knew that people judge by appearances and consequences, not by hidden truths. A leader who delivers prosperity may be ruthless behind the scenes, but he will be celebrated. A leader who speaks kindly and explains himself endlessly, but delivers nothing, will be despised. The result becomes the ultimate justification, wiping away questions, doubts, and even sins. It is the shield against criticism, and the sword against opposition. This principle applies beyond politics. It governs all forms of power. In business, a leader who produces growth and success earns the loyalty of employees and investors alike, regardless of how he explains himself. In war, a commander who wins is remembered as brilliant, even if his methods were harsh or his reasons obscure. In personal life, the individual who achieves their goals and stands firm in their results commands more respect than the one who constantly explains why they have not yet succeeded. People respect results because they are real, visible, and undeniable. They are the currency of authority, while words are but fragile promises. Silence, paired with results, is especially powerful. When you act without explaining, without defending, and simply allow your actions to manifest their outcome, you create an aura of inevitability. People assume you knew all along, that your silence came from confidence, that your lack of explanation meant mastery. This perception magnifies respect, because it places you above the realm of debate. You do not waste energy convincing others, you force them to confront reality itself. And reality, once established, cannot be debated away. The fortress stands, or it does not. The enemy is defeated, or he is not. The company thrives, or it collapses. Outcomes leave no room for doubt, and so they leave no need for word. It is for this reason that Machiavelli's teachings remain brutally relevant. Leaders are not remembered for what they explained, but for what they accomplished. No one studies the excuses of failed kings, but history is filled with monuments to those who won, regardless of their method. Explanations fade with time, but results carve themselves into stone. A leader who understands this will never bow to the weakness of defending himself with words. He will act, and let the action speak. He will deliver outcomes so clear that no critic can argue against them. He will silence doubt not with arguments, but with proof. For in the end, Machiavelli reminds us, the world does not measure you by your words, but by your results, and those results, once achieved, will echo louder than any explanation ever could. Power is not preserved by words, but by what you project, and what you produce. Machiavelli's brutal wisdom reminds us that explaining yourself is weakness. Perception is stronger than truth. Silence commands more respect than arguments, and results silence every critic more effectively than any justification ever could. The one who seeks to be understood will always be at the mercy of others' approval, but the one who controls perception, acts decisively, and delivers undeniable outcomes, rises above judgment. In a world ruled not by truth, but by belief, not by intention, but by effect, the wise understand that strength lies not in explanation, but in presence. Let your silence create mystery, let your actions define authority, and let your results speak so loudly that no words are ever required. That is the Machiavellian path to lasting power and unshakable respect.